Hey, welcome back to the Entrepreneur's Blueprint. I'm glad you're here today because I want to talk about something that I think a lot of founders feel, but we're not really talking about much. And it has to do with the moment right after you close a deal or make a new hire, whichever situation you're in. You did it. You signed a new client or you brought on a new team member. You're taking the leap to hire somebody new and you're excited. They're excited and there's a lot of energy. There's so much momentum and everybody's ready to go. And then the first 2 weeks happen. And somewhere in the back of your mind, this quiet voice shows up and says, that was not your best look. You sent files from 3 different places. You had a kickoff call where you were building the agenda in real time. Your new hire spent the first 3 days asking where things live and waiting on login credentials that should have been ready on day one. And you keep thinking, okay, once we get through this part, it'll get better. But that part leaves a mark and it already left a mark and you know it. That is what we are talking about today because your onboarding process is not just a logistics task. It is a direct reflection of your business and your brand. And most founders are not treating it that way. Let's start with what onboarding actually is because I think there's a misconception here that's worth clearing up. Most founders file onboarding under administration. It's the checklist you run through to get someone up to speed. It's the welcome email and the Zoom call and the let me know if you have any questions. And I get why it feels that way because on the surface that is truly what it looks like. But here's what's actually happening. Onboarding is the first time someone experiences your business from the inside, not your website, not your Instagram, not the pitch you gave on the discovery call, not the interview, the inside. And that is a completely different experience than anything they've seen before. Think about it from their perspective, whether that's a new client or new employee. Up until the moment they signed or accepted your offer, everything they saw was completely curated. Your marketing was curated. Your proposal was polished. Your job description was exactly as it needed to be. Your interview was scripted. Your pitch was prepared. You showed up ready for that. And they walked away with an impression of exactly who you are and how you operate. The second they cross the threshold, the second they sign the contract or accept that offer, then we open up the curtains. And what's behind those curtains is either consistent with what you sold them or it isn't. And there are really 2 versions of what they can find. Version A looks like this. A client signs within 24 hours and they have a welcome email in their inbox. And that tells them exactly what to expect over the next 2 weeks. Their client portal is set up and ready. The kickoff call has an agenda that they received ahead of time. They know who to contact, how to contact them, and what the communication rhythm is going to look like. They feel prepared. They feel like they made the right decision. A new employee in version A shows up on day one and their equipment is ready. Their logins are set up. Their first 30 days are mapped out. And they have a document that tells them what's expected of them, who they report to, where to find what they need, and what success looks like in their role. They don't have to ask 100 questions just to get oriented because the answers were already waiting for them. Version B is what most founders are actually running. The client gets a scattered email thread. The portal access gets sent a week late. The kickoff call is the first time you've really thought through the agenda. The new team member spends their first week tracking down information that should have already been handed to them. Nobody did anything wrong exactly. It just wasn't tight. It wasn't crisp. It wasn't efficient. And here's what I want you to understand about version B. The problem is not the disorganization itself. The problem is what the disorganization communicates. Because version B doesn't just create confusion, it creates some doubt. And doubt is really hard to walk back once it takes root. Your onboarding process should run like a finely tuned machine because it is the first time your brand and your team show up together in a real operational way. People are paying attention to that, even when they don't say it out loud. So let's talk about what a chaotic onboarding actually communicates, because I think this is the section that's going to land for you. When someone walks into a disorganized onboarding experience, there are 4 messages they receive, whether you intended to send them or not. The first one is, we don't have a system for this. And the second they think that, they start asking themselves, what else you don't have a system for? Is the project management going to look like this? Is communication going to look like this? Is invoicing going to look like this? You've created a question mark in their mind before the actual work even started. The second message is your arrival wasn't fully prepared for. And that one stings because it lands before anything else has happened. Before you've delivered a single result, before they've seen what you're actually capable of, the very first thing they feel is that somebody didn't prioritize getting ready for them. For an employee, it feels like you don't value them. For a client, it erodes confidence. And both of those things are really hard to recover from early in a relationship. The third message you're sending is this is probably how it's going to go from here on out. This is the one that I want founders to really sit with. The first experience sets expectations. A chaotic start doesn't just frustrate people in the moment, it gives them a framework then for interpreting everything that comes after it. Every future miscommunication, every delayed deliverable, every ball dropped, they're going to trace that back to what they saw in week one. You've primed them to see you as disorganized, even on days when you're not. The fourth message is standards here are flexible. This is the one that affects your authority the most. When your onboarding process is loose, you are signaling that your standards are loose, and people take their cues from that. Clients will start to test your boundaries. Team members will start to wing it because you've modeled that winging it is acceptable here. You do not want to start a relationship by handing somebody a permission to treat your processes as optional. Now, let me get a little more specific because the experience is different depending on whether we're talking about an employee or a client. For a team member, disorganized onboarding teaches them something immediately. It tells them how much clarity and ownership they can expect from this role. If they want to walk in without documented responsibilities, without a clear point of contact, without any kind of roadmap in their first weeks, they learn to operate in ambiguity. And that is a skill set you do not want to develop in your team. You've essentially trained them that figuring it out as a go is a standard here, which that is totally okay in a lot of instances. You might want an employee to be able to operate in some ambiguity. However, it will start to show up in their work. It will show up in how they make decisions, and it will show up in your culture because ambiguity is contagious. And where it becomes a problem is when they don't think there's going to be clear expectations, and so they can kind of do whatever they want. For a client, the stakes are just as real, just in a different direction. You might be extraordinary at what you do. Your work might be the best they've ever hired for. But if the onboarding is rough, they are already doing a mental calculation before they've seen a single deliverable. They're measuring the friction against the expected results and asking themselves if it's worth it. You work so hard to get them to yes. Don't make them then doubt that yes before the work even starts. Here's the thing though. Most founders already know their onboarding isn't great. Hey, I want to pause here for just a second. If what you're hearing today is hitting close to home, if you're recognizing your business in these patterns, I want you to know that it's not a coincidence. This is exactly the work I do with founders. I work with business owners who know something needs to change but haven't had the right person in their corner to help them build it. If that sounds like where you are, there's an inquiry form linked in the show notes. It takes about 3 minutes. Tell me where you are, what's not working, and what you're trying to build, and we'll find time to talk. Okay, let's keep going. This is not new information for you, so the real question is, why hasn't it been fixed? I think there are 3 honest reasons. And the first is that it doesn't happen enough to feel urgent. You onboard someone, you handle it, you move on. There's no immediate crisis. Nobody quit. The client didn't fire you, so you file it under fine and move forward. The problem is that you are measuring success by the absence of disaster instead of by the quality of the experience. Those are not the same thing. The second reason is that you are the system. Everything lives in your head. Every time you onboard someone, you reconstruct the process from memory based on what you did last time, adjusted for whatever details are different this time. And that does work for a while until it doesn't, until you're overloaded and something falls through, until you hand it off to someone on your team and they have no idea what they're doing because there was never a document to hand to them. The process that lives only in your head is not a process. It's just a liability. The third reason is that you've normalized the chaos. You have done it this way long enough that this is just what onboarding looks like to you. The idea that onboarding could be something people actually rave about, that a client could get off their kickoff call and say to someone, I already feel so good about this. That hasn't even entered the picture. You are not aiming for that because you don't know that it's even possible, but I'm here to tell you that it absolutely is. And the deeper issue underneath it all is founders pour enormous energy into attracting the right clients and finding the right people to hire. The marketing, the outreach, the interviews, the proposals, all of that effort to get to yes. And then the very first impression that matters from the inside gets treated like an afterthought. The gap between how good your work actually is and how organized your business feels starts here, and it closes here too. So let me tell you how I can help, because this is the kind of work I do with founders, and I want to speak to wherever you are right now. If you have a team, here is what I know to be true. Team morale stays high when processes are efficiently managed. When your people are not operating in chaos, when they know what they're supposed to be doing and they have the systems to support them, they can actually bring their best. That creates a team culture that is positive and high functioning. And the real value of that, the thing that actually moves the needle in your business, is that a hardworking team is a loyal team, a team that understands the vision, that feels equipped and supported, that isn't constantly figuring things out from scratch. That team shows up eager to bring your mission to life. In fact, Gallup found that highly engaged employee teams have 22% higher profitability, 21% greater productivity, and 3.5 times higher revenue growth than their competitors. Building a business with a highly effective team is what you actually want, not just a team that's present, but one that's bought in. This starts with how you bring them in. If you work with clients, what you need is an operating system, a blueprint for your business that has high functioning rhythms already built in, so that every client who comes through your door gets the same quality experience, regardless of how busy things are or who happens to be running point that week. What that means for you is clarity. You stop recreating the wheel every time. You stop holding everything in your head. You have a documented, consistent process that your team can own and execute without you managing every step of it. The real value is that now you have a foundation that can hold the weight of growth. You can take on more clients without things breaking. You can bring on team members and hand them something real. You can scale because the infrastructure is actually there to scale on. Every founder who goes through this process with me comes out the other side with something they didn't have before: a team that feels empowered to actually bring projects to completion. Rhythms are in place so that the business can operate with excellence consistently, not just when you're personally on top of everything. That is what a high functioning business looks like, and building one is what you're here for. If you're ready to have a conversation about what that could look like for your business specifically, there is a link in the show notes. Fill out a little information about where you are and what you're building, and we'll talk. I genuinely love to hear about it. Thank you so much for being here today. I don't take it lightly that you choose to spend time with this podcast, and I hope you're walking away with something real that you can use. If today's episode gave you something to think about or something to act on, I would love it if you would leave a review wherever you listen. It takes about 2 minutes and it helps other founders find this show. If you know someone who needs to hear this one, please send it to them. I'll talk to you next week.